In 1969, Chevrolet created a muscle car that officially should not have existed. It was so secret that it couldn't simply be bought at a dealership. So expensive that its price doubled the cost of a base Camaro. And so powerful that, despite its commercial failure, it forever entered history as one of the greatest racing monsters. In this video, we will learn how Chevrolet circumvented its own prohibitions, created the legendary all-aluminum ZL1 427 engine, how the daring of one dealer triggered a chain reaction, and why this racing beast, destined for commercial failure, became the undefeated king of the track. Watch until the end, and you lines understand how one of Chevrolet's wildest experiments transformed into the rarest and most coveted racing icon. It was the mid-1960s, the golden era of American muscle cars. Streets hummed with the roar of powerful engines, and racetracks became battlegrounds where every automaker strove to prove its supremacy. Ford and Chrysler unreservedly invested in racing, fielding cars created with direct factory support. But within the corridors of General Motors hung a strict directive that seemed like an impenetrable wall. No direct involvement in motorsport, no racing programs for its divisions, including Chevrolet. The ban was categorical, its purpose to avoid accusations of creating dangerous cars and high insurance premiums, as well as to focus on mass-produced vehicles. However, the thirst for speed, the spirit of rivalry, and the drive for victory were stronger than any corporate prohibitions. Chevrolet engineers and marketers, true enthusiasts, couldn't simply sit idle by while competitors dominated the tracks. They began to look for loopholes, bypasses, to give racers and dealers what they so desperately craved. And they found such a loophole, a system that was originally created for completely different purposes. Central Office Production Order, or COPO. COPO was Chevrolet's internal system for placing orders for non-standard vehicles. It was typically used for specialized vehicles, police cars with reinforced chassis, fire trucks, or taxis that required specific specifications. These options were not listed in regular customer brochures. They could only be ordered through the central office. And it was precisely this bureaucratic peculiarity that agile minds at Chevrolet transformed into a secret channel for supplying high-performance components and even entire vehicles. It was a world of underground engineering and marketing, where formalities allowed them to circumvent prohibitions without violating them on paper. One of the first and most striking manifestations of this underground strategy was the L8 427 big block V8 engine. Between 1967 and 1968, this powerful unit, equipped with a cast-iron block, was available exclusively through the COPO system. It was not intended for ordinary buyers. It was an uncompromising, race-oriented engine with a high compression ratio, an aggressive camshaft, and a massive Holley carburetor. Chevrolet officially claimed 430 horsepower, but everyone who knew anything about the subject knew the L88's real power approached, or even exceeded, 500 horsepower. In fact, it was a racing engine camouflaged as an option for the select few. Mostly, the L88 was installed in Corvettes, transforming them into virtually ready-to-race cars right off the assembly line, available only to those who knew the correct order code and had the right connections. The emergence of the L88 was a kind of experiment, a test of boundaries. It showed that engineers and dealers could balance on the edge of the rules without crossing official lines and still satisfy the demands of the most discerning enthusiasts and racers. The L88 was a powerful statement, proof that even under the yoke of prohibitions, Chevrolet was capable of creating beasts for the track. But this was just the beginning. The cast-iron L88 block, though powerful, was heavy. And for a real breakthrough in racing, something more was needed, something that went beyond ordinary, even secret, production. Engineers were already dreaming of aluminum, envisioning an engine that would be not just powerful, but incredibly light. The ground was prepared. An even more extreme power plant loomed on the horizon, ready to forever change the history of muscle cars. The dream of aluminum, of an engine that would be not just powerful, but incredibly light, materialized in late 1968. Chevrolet engineers, who already had the formidable L88 427 cubic inch V8 with a cast iron block, a true racing machine available through the secret COPO system, knew that for true drag strip domination, they needed not just raw power, but smart power. Every ounce of weight meant victory or defeat. And so, inspired by this idea, they took the proven L88 architecture as their base, but made a radical breakthrough. Instead of the familiar, albeit incredibly strong, cast iron, they decided to completely redesign the engine. The result was a power plant that was essentially the same mighty 427, but now its block and cylinder heads were cast entirely from aluminum. This decision was not just an engineering feat, but a true miracle of lightness. Imagine, this new engine, codenamed ZL1, weighed approximately 100 pounds less than its cast iron sibling L88, a full 100 pounds. In racing, where every second and every pound matters, this was tantamount to magic. It didn't just improve dynamics, it completely changed the car's balance, its ability to transfer weight to the rear wheels during launch, and overall maneuverability. But lightness didn't mean a compromise in power. On the contrary, the ZL1 was the embodiment of uncompromising engineering created for one purpose: to win. Its technical specifications spoke for themselves: 427 cubic inches, or, as we prefer, 7.0 liters of pure American muscle. Inside this lightweight aluminum block spun a forged steel crankshaft, the guarantee of incredible strength and the ability to withstand colossal loads. The engine was equipped with a high-lift camshaft with solid lifters, ensuring aggressive valve opening and maximum cylinder filling. The compression ratio was pushed to a racing spec 12:1, which required high-octane fuel but also promised explosive power. And, of course, this beast breathed through a formidable Holley 850 CFM 4-barrel carburetor capable of swallowing tons of air and fuel to convert them into pure energy. Officially, Chevrolet modestly claimed 430 horsepower, which was identical to the L88. This was a kind of trick to circumvent GM's internal prohibitions on direct racing support and avoid increased insurance premiums. But everyone who understood anything about muscle cars knew the ZL1's real power was much higher, estimated to easily exceed 500 to 550 horsepower. The ZL1 was not just an engine, it was a work of art, the pinnacle of engineering of its time. It was a challenge thrown at the mundane, created for those who craved absolute domination. Its appearance changed the rules of the game, ushering in a new era in muscle car history and laying the foundation for legends that would live for decades. But who was the one who dared to open this Pandora's box? Who saw in this engineering marvel not just an engine, but the key to absolute dominance on the racetrack? The answer lies in the small town of La Harpe, Illinois, and a name forever etched into muscle car history: Fred Gibb. Gibb was not just a successful Chevrolet dealer. He was a true drag racer whose life was steeped in the smell of burnt rubber and high-octane fuel. More than anyone else, he understood the needs and ambitions of the racing community, and it was this foresight that allowed him to be the first to recognize the true potential of the ZL1. By the mid-1960s, General Motors, under pressure from internal prohibitions, had distanced itself from direct factory support for racing. But this did not mean that Chevrolet left its fans without high-performance solutions. On the contrary, they developed a sophisticated COPO system, Central Office Production Order. This was a kind of secret channel through which truly racing components and cars could be ordered without advertising them in official brochures. This was how the monstrous L88, a cast-iron big block of 427 cubic inches, primarily available for the Corvette, had been supplied for some time. But the L88 was merely a prelude. In late 1968, Chevrolet engineers took the concept to the absolute, creating the ZL1, an all-aluminum version of the same 427 big block. Just think about it, 100 kilograms less in weight compared to the cast-iron L88, while retaining and even amplifying its wild power. This was the perfect formula for drag racing, where every kilogram shed and every horsepower gained was crucial. Fred Gibb, as an experienced racer, instantly grasped the scale of this revolution. He understood that the ZL1 was not just another powerful engine. It was a cheat code for victory, the pinnacle of what could be created within factory limitations. And he made the boldest decision of his career. In December 1968, Gibb, using his connections and influence, ordered an unprecedented batch, 50 units of the 1969 Camaro model year, equipped with this aluminum monster. And it wasn't just an order. Chevrolet demanded an advance payment for each of these engines, which for Gibb became a huge financial risk. He literally put everything on the line. The ZL1 was so specialized, expensive, and race-focused that there was no mention of it in official dealer brochures. It was an underground player, intended for those who knew. To get it, dealers had to use the secret code COPO 9560, a kind of secret handshake opening access to the pinnacle of performance. This was a bypass that allowed Chevrolet to avoid directly violating GM's internal prohibition on racing support, while still supplying racers with a weapon of mass destruction. The ZL1 engine, with 427 cubic inches, 7.0 liters, was a masterpiece, a fully aluminum block and cylinder heads. A forged steel crankshaft, a high-lift camshaft with solid lifters, a 12-to-1 compression ratio, and a massive Holley 850 CFM 4-barrel carburetor. Officially, Chevrolet claimed 430 horsepower, the same figure as for the L88. Why? To avoid increased insurance premiums and unwanted attention from regulators. But no one doubted that the ZL1's real power was much higher. Experts estimated it in the range of 500 to 550 horsepower, or even more, straight from the factory. This power came at a price, and it was shocking. The ZL1 engine alone added an astronomical $4,160 to the cost of a Camaro. Imagine, a base Camaro cost around $2,700 in 1969, and the ZL1 option almost doubled that price. In the end, a Camaro ZL1 cost the beer over $7,200, a sum that was unaffordable for most in 1969. Not surprisingly, many of these unique cars initially languished on dealer lots. Some were even returned to the General Motors factory, where they were fitted with less expensive engines, such as the L78 396, just to be sold. But the few who dared or managed to acquire a ZL1 immediately discovered its true purpose. On the drag strips, ZL1-equipped cars instantly became a legend. With minimal modifications, they easily completed the quarter mile in 10 to 11 seconds. These were figures that seemed fantastic for a production car at the time. Only 69 Camaros were officially released with the ZL1 engine in 1969, and the majority of them were the result of Fred Gibb's very order. Only 2 Corvettes equipped with the ZL1 were added, making them even rarer. It was this single initiative, this audacious act by one dealer who saw what others missed, that triggered a chain reaction. He didn't just order a batch of cars, he opened the door for the emergence of a legend that was never supposed to exist in such a form. Fred Gibb, unknowingly, wrote the first chapter in the incredible saga of the Chevrolet ZL1 427, forever changing the perception of what was possible on 4 wheels. But what exactly rolled out of the factory gates thanks to Fred Gibb's order? The reality of the ZL1's production and market value was shocking, but it was precisely that which cemented these cars' status as uncompromising monsters. In 1969, only 69 Chevrolet Camaros and just a Corvettes were officially granted the aluminum heart of the ZL1. This is not a typo. 69 Camaros to Corvettes. An incredible rarity that instantly transformed them into some of the most exclusive and coveted muscle cars in history. This exclusivity was due not only to the complexity of production, but also to how they even reached dealerships. The ZL1 engine was so specialized, expensive, and race-oriented that it wasn't even included in official sales brochures. Dealers had to use the obscure COPO 9560 code, Central Office Production Order, to even order a car with this engine. It was not a choice for the average beer, but a secret code for those who knew what they were looking for. At the same time, the ZL1's official power figures were as modest as they were misleading. Chevrolet claimed only 430 horsepower SAE gross, exactly the same as the less expensive and heavier L88 with a cast iron block. This was a conscious decision. The underrated power allowed them to avoid increased insurance premiums and excessive attention from regulatory bodies, which at the time were beginning to scrutinize extreme muscle cars. But anyone who sat behind the wheel of a ZL1 knew the truth. The real power of this aluminum beast, with its forged steel crankshaft, high-lift camshaft, and massive Holley carburetor, was estimated to be much closer to 500 to 550 horsepower. This was a machine built to dominate the drag strip, not for peaceful highway cruising. However, the main barrier to widespread acceptance was the price. The ZL1 option alone added a colossal $4,160 to the cost of a Camaro. That's why, despite its crushing power and exclusivity, the ZL1 was doomed to commercial failure. Many of these unique cars languished on dealer lots for a long time. Some were even returned to General Motors factories, where they were fitted with less expensive engines, such as the L78 396, just to be sold. Only a few buyers, farsighted or simply insane in their passion for speed, were willing to pay such a sum for a purebred racing car disguised as a street car. Thus, the ZL1 became not just rare, but also a tragic symbol of its era, incomparable in power, but a market failure due to its unaffordability. It was this unaffordability that became its Achilles heel. For a car whose price soared above $7,200, which, let's remember, was almost double the base cost of a Camaro, few were willing to pay such a sum. Imagine, in 1969, for that money, you could buy 2 base Camaros, or almost 2 Corvettes. The initial demand for immediate full payment for the first 50 ZL1S, insisted upon by Fred Gibb, only underscored the project's exclusivity and high cost. Although General Motors later softened the terms for other dealers, it changed little. Most of the 69 ZL1 Camaros produced languished for months on dealer lots, accumulating a layer of disappointment. They were too specific, too expensive, and, most importantly, too overtly race-oriented for the average beer who just wanted a powerful muscle car for the road. The situation reached absurdity. Some of these incredible cars, failing to find buyers, were effectively returned to General Motors. There, at the factories, they underwent a kind of operation. Their aluminum ZL1 hearts, the symbol of their exclusivity and racing pedigree, were removed and replaced with less expensive, but still powerful, cast iron L78 396 engines. This was a desperate measure, intended to somehow make these body shells attractive to the market and save dealers from complete financial catastrophe. From a commercial standpoint, the ZL1 was a failure, a true collapse for a machine that, it seemed, embodied speed itself. But, like any coin, the ZL1 had another side, a side that shone brightly and undeniably, where its true value was fully revealed, the racetrack. If an auto shows the ZL1 was an outcast, on the drag strips it instantly became king. Its true purpose, hidden behind the modest COPO 9560 badge and complete absence from official sales catalogs, manifested here in all its devastating power. Under the hood, this 427 cubic inch unit was not just another big block. It was a masterpiece of engineering, a fully aluminum block and cylinder heads. And it won, doing so spectacularly and mercilessly. With minimal modifications, sometimes just replacing tires with slicks and fine-tuning the carburetor, ZL1-equipped cars covered the quarter-mile with astonishing ease. Factory examples, driven by pilots like Dickie Otis, Jimmy Woods, and Bill Trucklad, consistently posted high 10s and low 11s, immediately becoming the new benchmark for speed in the super stock class. These results were phenomenal for a production car of that time and clearly demonstrated the incredible power-to-weight ratio that the aluminum engine provided. Racers loved the ZL1 for its predictable yet brutal strength, its ability to withstand severe stresses, and the dominance it brought to every race. It was not intended for the supermarket or family trips. It was built for an uncompromising battle for fractions of a second, and it was here that it shined, proving its true value. Thus, the Chevrolet ZL1 427 became the embodiment of a unique paradox. A car that proved too extreme and exorbitantly expensive for the broader market, where it suffered a crushing fiasco, simultaneously became an instant legend and an unbeatable weapon on the racetracks. This is the story of a machine that was rejected by commerce but found its true calling, proving its invaluable power and engineering superiority where it truly mattered. In the roar of engines and the cheering of the crowd witnessing the triumph of pure speed and uncompromising engineering genius. It was this uncompromising engineering genius, born in the shadows of Chevrolet's classified programs, that made the ZL1 427 not just a car, but an undying legend, the pinnacle of the company's covert high-performance ambitions in the late 1960s, in an era when General Motors officially prohibited direct motorsport support. The thirst for pure, unbridled power remained tangible, and the ZL1 became its hidden yet brightest embodiment. It was a child of an era when Chevrolet engineers, utilizing the COPO system, or Central Office Production Orders, circumvented corporate restrictions to create something phenomenal. The L88 427 was already known in racing circles, but the ZL1, with its all-aluminum block and heads, represented the next step. A weight reduction of approximately 100 pounds compared to the cast-iron L88 was revolutionary for achieving maximum performance on the drag strip. This was a car built not for the mass market, but for the select few, for those who understood the true value of every pound removed and every additional horsepower. Its rarity is truly astonishing. Only 69 Camaros and just 2 Corvettes received this engine in 1969. Most of these 69 Camaros came about thanks to the foresight of dealer Fred Gibb, who saw the ZL1's potential for drag racing and ordered the first batch, paying for it in advance. This exclusivity, multiplied by extreme power, cemented the ZL1's status as one of the most coveted muscle cars in history. Under the ZL1's hood lurked a 427 cubic inch 7.0 LV8 with a forged steel crankshaft, a high lift camshaft with solid lifters, a 12:1 compression ratio, and a massive Holley 850 CFM 4-barrel carburetor. The officially claimed 430 horsepower was, to say the least, underrated. This was a clever move by Chevrolet to avoid increased insurance premiums and unwanted attention from regulatory bodies. Real power, according to experts, ranged between 500 to 550 horsepower, making the ZL1 an absolute monster on the road and track. Despite its engineering brilliance, the ZL1's commercial path was thorny. The astronomical cost of the ZL1 option $4,160, which almost doubled the base Camaro price of $2,700, bringing the total purchase price to over $7,200 made it inaccessible to most buyers. Many ZL1 cars initially sat on dealer lots for a long time, and some were even returned to General Motors and re-equipped with less expensive engines to at least find owners. However, it was on the racetracks that the ZL1 truly unleashed its potential. It quickly established itself as a dominant force in drag racing, capable of completing the quarter mile in high 10s or low 11s with minimal modifications. This fact, not initial sales, became the foundation of its legend. Today, the Chevrolet ZL1 427 is not just a car. It is a symbol of an era when engineers went to great lengths to create unmatched power, even if it meant circumventing the rules. It remains one of the rarest, most powerful, and most collectible muscle cars, an enduring tribute to pure American engineering innovation and the pursuit of speed. The ZL1, despite its commercial difficulties, earned its place in the pantheon of automotive legends as the brightest example of hidden power and uncompromising superiority that forever changed muscle car culture. It was a diamond that only revealed its true brilliance over time, becoming the embodiment of unbridled American power and engineering genius. This car, born in the shadows of corporate prohibitions and audacious engineering genius, became not just a legend, but a monument to uncompromising human obsession. It is the embodiment of a paradox, a commercial failure that became a symbol of absolute superiority, where true value was revealed not in price, but in pure, unbridled power. So, if the greatest creations are often born from challenging rules and a willingness to sacrifice market success for an ideal, what does that say about our own paths to perfection? And is it not sometimes the rebellion against conventions that is the true engine of progress? We have told just one story, but there are many where the pursuit of greatness transcends all limitations. What forbidden innovations, in your opinion, are changing the world today? Share your thoughts in the comments, give a like if this story inspired you, and subscribe to the channel to continue our philosophical journey through history.